Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is 2 o'clock and I would like to call the meeting to order. And if I can have the adoption of the agenda resolution, please.
Resolved, the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated with the noted additions. Bylaw public hearing 8.3, speed bylaw requests from residents.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Spicer seconds. Anything else, additions or deletions for the agenda today? Any? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. The next item we have is confirmation of the minutes, and we have 2 sets of minutes. And if I could ask our CAO to please read the resolution.
Resolved, the minutes of March 30th, 2021, regular meeting of council, and April 6th, 2021, special meeting be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Corbis, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any discussion or corrections or changes to those, either set of those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, we don't have any delegations. We have no communications for action. Oh, we have a couple of communications. No, sorry, communications for action. We have none. We have a couple of items under new and other business. And the first one is post-traumatic stress disorder. June is Awareness Month, and we do have a proclamation. And I believe it's in a resolution form. So I'll ask our CAO to please go over that.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. We received a request to do a proclamation from the president of the Mother of Son with PTSD, and it's identifying June's Awareness Month related to post-traumatic stress disorders. And what they've also requested for us is to be to have our staff fill out some of the forms that are related with that stress disorder.
Okay, any questions or comments from council members? And there is a resolution. If you could go ahead and read that for us, Deepak, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Whereas June has been declared as PTSD Awareness Month each year around the world, and whereas for centuries we have recognized post-traumatic stress disorder, and whereas PTSD can affect all ages, children through to seniors, and whereas treatment of PTSD is available, and whereas it is up to each of us to know that PTSD assessment form is a major tool to seek medical assistance, and whereas PTSD Awareness Month urges all to seek help for those who may have PTSD requiring medical assistance. Therefore, be it resolved, Council of the Arm of St. Clements do hereby proclaim June as PTSD Awareness Month in our municipality and encourage the residents of the Arm of St. Clements to actively learn about PTSD assessment form written by the Center for PTSD Research as a tool to assist those affected by PTSD to obtain medical assistance.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Corbis, Councillor Strang seconds. Any discussion?
Whereas?
Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, and the next one we have is the policy, and this is relatively new for the speed limit changes on municipal roads. Mr. CAO, if you could just walk us through that before we adopt it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, today we are reviewing the having second reading and third reading for our speed bylaw number 5 of 2021. And with our speed bylaw, we had some discussions with council and felt the council had requested that a policy be created in order to provide a process on how future speed limit changes could be addressed by the Arm of St. Clements. In reviewing this, our bylaw officer, soon to be a protective services officer, will be has done some investigation on this. Has also worked with our public works department, and we've come back with a policy that would be most relevant. The policy does recommend that there should be a review done on a yearly basis in order to manage these requests and also give our residents an opportunity to be able to fully evaluate the speed limits that have been put in place from this bylaw. So what we're recommending is that the policy, which the rationale is, of course, to provide a consistent base of information and by the administration and for council to evaluate these requests for changes that come forward. And then what would be required is that upon written request for a change in a proposed speed limit in the municipal road, the applicant will be required to provide a rationale as to why the speed limit should be changed, the applicant's name, suggestions of the new speed limit, along with some background information as to what's been occurring in there, maybe even if there's information related to complaints to municipal bylaw or to the RCMP, and provide a petition of support from residents on that said street. And so the intent there is that the administration would be able to take those and then be able to provide a report back to council that could be reviewed on a yearly basis for all the various speed bylaw requests. They would take into consideration costs such as installation of signs, as well as a study done by Public Works on the speed in that area, sort of supporting that people are actively going at a higher level speeds than what are being posted. Impact on the surrounding roads, to take a look at what does this affect as to integration. So when you're going from a 90 to a 50, does that make sense, or would you be going to other reasonable numbers? And also provide an assessment of the impact overall as to the current flow of traffic. And then this would be brought forward to council for review. And so what this policy does is provide us a methodology that we can use as we move forward dealing with speed limit changes.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from members of council? I guess we can go ahead with the resolution. Tyler, was there anything that you wanted to add on this policy at this point in time? No? Okay. Then I'll have the resolution, please.
Resolved, council adopt policy number 608, speed limit changes on municipal roads, and that said policy be incorporated into the policy manual.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Belanger, Councillor Strang, seconds. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, next we have our accounts and our accounts this time around, the closed list of accounts, and if we could have the resolution, please.
Resolved, council approve the April 13th, 2021 list of accounts, check numbers 21000610 to 21000708 in the amount of $350,824.60 for payment.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Vazzarowicz, seconds. Any discussion? Questions, comments on the accounts at all? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay. Bylaw for our public hearing. And we do have a resolution to enter into our public hearing for bylaw number 5 of 2021. If we could have that resolution, please.
Thank you. Resolved, regular meeting be adjourned and the public hearing be open for bylaw 5 of 2021.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horvis, Councillor Strang, seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, I think we all are quite aware of this, but I'm going to ask our CAO to just have any, or make any comments he wishes to, or things that we may hear out in the general public with the speed limit bylaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I'll start off with is just an overall presentation of just to remind us of the bringing of the speed zone bylaw. So the speed zone bylaw was established for this year of 2021, speed zone bylaw number 5. In June of 2018, the Manitoba government passed the Traffic and Transportation Modernization Act, which amended the Highway Traffic Act and dissolves the Highway Traffic Board, along with the board's authority to set speed limits on roadways through the province. The Traffic and Transportation Modernization Act came into force on March 1st, 2019, and now requires municipalities to create a bylaw setting speed limits on their roadways in accordance with government regulations. And that's what this bylaw represents. Council conducted their first reading of the speed zone bylaw on March 9th, 2021, and what they requested was to be able to provide this related information onto our website, which was shared with our citizens and was also shared in some of our publications. And with that, it identified that council would be holding a public hearing on April 13th of 2021, which is today, to address any comments or concerns that may be coming from the public related to that bylaw. It also listed all the streets and the proposed speed limits that were going to be put on there. As there are COVID restrictions, and because of that, most of this information had to be shared online as opposed to having a public hearing or public consultations, as well as any kind of open houses. After the first reading of the bylaws were shared online, inviting those comments, opportunity to present or submit for the public hearing on March 30th was identified. I'm sorry, that should have said April 13th. Information was also shared on social media. And so, how does this affect our residents? Well, this will allow residents to voice their opinion on behalf. So this is some of the website information that we had shared on the policy that was coming forward, and shared the bylaw itself, and it gave them the opportunity of where to mail in any comments that they may have. And it did answer some of the frequently asked questions like how they impact on the ability to make complaints. Will they automatically receive a ticket or rather than a warning? What are the fines? What does the breakdown look like? And as you may recall, we've already adopted the common offense notice bylaw, which allows us to be able to charge on those. And who enforces it? It speaks to that a little bit. And then will there signs be put up? And Tal mentioned that signs will be put up as part of this process. Since the council had requested this policy change, it was on March 9th that it was determined that moving forward would be appropriate to introduce changes on a yearly basis. This would allow a full year to examine impacts of speed changes and will allow for the administration to collect the necessary data to support future changes. So that's what our current policy that came forward today did. And so with that, we have two letters that we received in regards to the requests related with the bylaw change, and as well as Tyler is here to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Okay, before we read the letters, are there any questions for Tyler at this point in time? Okay, Councillor Strang.
One of the letters is a relative, so I would like to declare one.
Thank you.
Sorry,
that's okay. Okay, we did receive the two letters from residents, and as of yesterday, obviously there is nobody going to be here in person. There is nobody here now, so I'm sure that nobody registered to speak regarding this bylaw today. So what I'm going to ask the CAO to do is just, I guess, not to read the letters, but kind of the gist of the letters and what road they're on, and we'll enter them into the record as received.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first letter is for Myrtle and Will Polensky, and that's from 72-171 Floodway Drive South. And this letter is specifically stating that the Floodway Drive South has been designated to be 70 kilometers an hour, and they are requesting for the speed limit to be reduced to 50 kilometers an hour. And the reason being is that there are several children that play along these roads, and it's a high traffic area, and people tend to speed anyways, and what they like, they feel that it's a dangerous situation with deep ditches, and they would recommend, if at all possible, to reduce that speed limit to 50 on that area. And I can move to the second letter if you like, Madam
Please.
Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
And the second letter is on, has been received regarding Raleigh Road, and it's by Mateus, Mateus family from 4900 Raleigh Road. And what they've asked is that, again, Raleigh Road on this section has been designated as 70 kilometers an hour, and they're also requesting it to go down to 50. Some of their reasoning being is that their roads such as Rebec are already at 60, and this is 70, and this is also partially a part of an industrial area with large semi-trucks going up and down, and so they feel that there are a lot of residents that sort of walk here along this road as well to attend to the mailboxes, and there's children and dogs and children on rides and children riding bikes and children playing, and they feel that reducing the speed would make it much more safer.
Thank you for that. Any comments from members of council? Councillor Spicer and then Councillor Belanger.
Okay, so we did ask for the council's input. We've heard the public's input, and we have gotten a couple of letters. I think the other thing important to mention here is both of these areas are close to industrial, so we're going to have bigger trucks. So I would support us taking a look at both of these. Being that we just passed the policy, I guess the next step would have administration help these two folks go through the requirements of the policy, I assume.
Go ahead.
In this regard, since we are passing the bylaw for the first time, and we've just passed the policy, if council wishes, we could bring something back sooner than the year. If council wishes to do that, because we're passing the bylaw for the first time, and these are part of our public consultation, or we could put it into the request to bring forward at the end of the year, and so that it could be the traffic effects of going to 70 could be measured as to the impact. So that could be a decision of council today, whatever council wishes, and we could certainly bring it back. Tyler, if you could comment, both of these are going down from 90, as I recall,
That's correct,
to 70. And so, you know, there may be a perceived impact on 90 was quite fast, and that's quite a drop to 70, and going to 50 would be a fairly significant, not yet recognizing what our industrial users might say, to having that as an impact on them utilizing these roads.
Councillor Belanger and then Councillor Horvis.
So it's going from 90, and who's suggesting 70?
I think that was,
70 now.
no, I think
It's
that
90
was,
now.
I think that was through the reviewing or putting the bylaw together by our bylaw enforcement.
That was suggested by administration
Okay.
after the initial public consultations that had occurred.
I mean, I would concur with Councillor Spicer. I was going to say the same thing. This is an industrial area. Trucks are going down this road. It's a mix. It's a real dichotomy because you go down there. There's families. There's houses. I know it's going to be a drastic change going from 90 to 50, but I would support going to 50 in this particular area too. And as soon as it can be implemented, the better. Unless we go from 90 to 70, let them warm up to it, and then go to 50. But you can't really do that, right? It's got to be.
Then you're changing it
Yeah.
too often,
I would support the
suspect.
50 kilometers and support these letters that are coming in.
Okay, Councillor Horvis.
Well, I thought well, it is 90 on these roads, but I thought it was posted at 70 now, but it's not. So you guys are suggesting to put it to 70?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah?
Yeah, like the way it's listed in it is 90, like you said, but we're suggesting from council's discussion too that we move it to 70 in those areas.
Yeah, I think 50 is too low, especially for big trucks or whatever. That's just, it's too slow for them or whatever when they're.
Just to follow up on that,
Yeah,
yeah, I thought that too, but in my mind, as we said yesterday, 50 means 70, 70 means 80. People always are going a little faster than what, so that's sort of why I was going in this
Put
direction.
it at 60 then. You know, but 50 is, I don't know, I can't. 70 is, like, you don't see 70 much though posted anywhere, eh?
Anderson Highway.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah. I never.
almost all of it is except for right around.
I thought it was usually 90 or 100 or 80.
70 along Henderson
Yeah.
Highway. Counselor Sutherland, you had put your hand up.
Yeah, I would concur with what Tyler, like he put time into these speed limits, and from 90 to 70 is pretty significant. And I know there's children playing on just about every road in the municipality. And to me, 70s, I think that would be the proper speed limit.
Okay, Counselor Bazarowicz.
I'd be fine with 70 as well. If there was a handful of people that were complaining about it, it'd be one thing, but there's only one. If we do drop them down to 50, you're gonna have a lot of people in here with a direction, I think.
Could very well be. Go ahead, Counselor Spicer.
Well, that's the biggest challenge that I'm having with this is you have, one household in both areas,
Right.
right? And our policy says, that they need to talk to, we need more than one household. So that's why I was kind of thinking of, I don't know how fast we want to change it because, like, now if they go down the street and get 20 names that ask for it, now it's kind of a different story, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I think we should definitely think about what we're doing, and I'm not sure 50 is the right number either. Like, the other thing, the problem with Raleigh is that, there's a section that's industrial,
Right.
and then there's a section that's residential. Part of the problem is their mailboxes are there, so if they walk to the mailbox while they're walking in front of industrial. Now, we're planning, I guess, to move those mailboxes too. So that could change some things also, right? So, but at the same time, the other side of me is saying, well, we asked for input, we got it, we have to listen to it, but I think we should follow the policy. I think we need to do our check, they need to do what they're required to do, and then we'll consider it.
Okay. And I guess I've been thinking about it too, and I kind of agree that 50 for a bigger vehicle is a little slow on that stretch of road. I don't know, could we all live with 60? Tyler, comments from yourself?
Yeah, my opinion, the difference with Raleigh and Floodway is if you're pulling off of 44 going south on Floodway Drive south, that's probably a couple mile stretch without a stop sign, and then it bends around to Kirkness. So it's a straightaway dirt road, right, with houses with this small industrial park. But Raleigh, it's got the stop sign at every street, right? There's Donald Dunning, everything like that is all broken up every mile. So it's a little different of a street just because one you can go for quite a ways at that set speed. The other one you're already stop and go, stop and go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it makes more sense. I think the 70 does make more sense. It'd be nice to do a couple of these though, just to get it out there. Like you said, just to get some done and then see how many more come in to do. And they did do the work for me, so.
yeah, and I completely agree with Councilor Spicer too. I appreciate the one person with the one letter on 2 different places, but policy is we need more, right? And it's pretty clear. And I know, again, it's your decision, but my opinion moving forward with this bylaw when I first introduced it was I don't want to keep coming to you with one person.
Right.
And I appreciate it, but you know, we need more to it. Otherwise, we'd be in this situation quite a bit. Having said that, I think if we went with the 70 that's suggested, we can do that. Analyze it at the end of the year, get Public Works out there, let's test the speed, see what it actually is, and review it at that point. And if we want to go down to 60, 50, whatever you guys want to do, we can do it like that.
So you're suggesting then to leave it at the 70 for now?
I am, and
Okay.
I would openly speak with these 2 residents who wrote in and say, you know, it's at 70, come back in a month with your petition, like, here's where we want to go, and if they do that, then so be it, let's look at it again. But at least we have that policy to follow.
Okay. Is that okay with members of council? Councillor Sutherland and then Councillor Belanger.
You know, I'm fine with that, and petitions are good. But if you want to get enough names in a petition, you can do it whether they agree or not. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Well, it's just
Yeah.
a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And a lot of those people aren't even, who use that road more than the people who live on it will be driving on it if it's industrial, so they don't even get the road. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger.
Do we not have that fancy new board that we bought that once we set it to 70, that we can put the board and put this posted speed limit at 70, and then that fancy board tracks how many speeds are going through,
Yeah.
and if we see that people are abiding to the 70, we're all gonna go, great, this is working. Or if we see everybody's doing 80 or whatever, it'll give us a good,
and we can put it up.
That's the electronic speed zone or speed?
Yeah. And that's what I'm directly speaking about when I mentioned Public Works do that survey,
Yeah.
that sign specifically.
Yeah. Okay, so are we going to ask our protective services officer to speak to these 2 people, explain the situation, and proceed with the bylaw as it is?
I think so. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So what I'll do is I'll read the book. Therefore, we can move directly to the
Closing the public hearing.
closing the public hearing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, can I ask Tyler to see if we can find Councillor Strang for
Right.
us, please? Oh, okay, thanks, Councillor Belanger. I don't want to take you home.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I will ask our CAO to please read the resolution to close the public hearing.
Resolve the public hearing for bylaw 5 of 2021 be closed and the regular session of council be reconvened.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, second. Councillor Horgus, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Okay, so that brings us to the actual bylaw, the maximum speed limit bylaw for second and third reading. And if council wishes to proceed, I will ask our CEO to please read the resolution for second reading.
Resolve bylaw 5 of 2021 being a bylaw to establish the maximum speed limit on a highway or a portion of a highway under the responsible traffic authority's jurisdiction be given second reading as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Horgus, seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, third reading for the maximum speed bylaw number 5 of 2021. If I can have the resolution, please.
Resolved, bylaw 5 of 2021 being a bylaw to establish the maximum speed limit on a highway or a portion of a highway under the Responsible Traffic Authority's jurisdiction be given third reading as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Borges seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so we are at number 10 on our agenda, which is communication for information. And there's, I guess, 10.2.1. Did you want to talk on that one, Deepak, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I thought this would be an important one to at least have a discussion with council on as to some of the information that's been provided. The Minister of Municipal Relations provided a letter to the mayors and reeves in regards to the municipal budget or the provincial budget that was just approved last week. And what we're here, just some of the things that I wanted to highlight in here is that they have identified significant funding, especially to maintain the municipal operating basket funding, and of $51.3 million for the municipalities outside of Winnipeg. This funding is unconditional and will be used by the municipalities. It's similar to last year. What they're going to do is give us 75% of the funding will be advanced in May. So that helps to make sure that the municipalities are able to proceed with their expenses and be able to use that funding as quickly as possible to be able to manage their finances. The other is that they are talking about the additional operating basket, which is the $1.7 million funding for the municipally disadvantaged transportation program, but I don't think that applies to our municipality. And the other is what they've added is to the budget 2021 is to continue to provide for key public safety priorities, and that's a total of $30 million. And I think the critical one is probably the strategic infrastructure funding and the building sustainable communities funding that might have some opportunities for some of the grant applications that the municipality has applied for. So I just wanted to highlight that. The city of Winnipeg will get an additional 16, and they will continue to fund the Manitoba Water Services Board of $51.8 million for the Water Services Board. But new funding is also being provided of $43 million to the Manitoba Water Services Board, and that funding is in addition to the normal $50 million, and some might be beneficial for some of the requests that we've made to the Manitoba Water Services Board. They are also directing another total of $146 million for municipalities outside of Winnipeg, which is wonderful news for the surrounding municipalities. The other is the building sustainable communities, and what they're doing is they're increasing that by $2 million, as well as they're adding an additional $5 million to the Urban Green Team program. And so we do make applications for green teams, and this year we have made 2 applications, one for the Public Works Green Team and one for our Recreation Green Team. So this might be a good opportunity, and so we'll be monitoring if we can get some funding associated with that. Along with that, they've added some money for the watershed districts, which doesn't impact us, and the Conservation and Climate Fund. The other is the COVID-19 enforcement support. So we are receiving some money for the, for the COVID-19 enforcement support, which we've been tracking our costs related with when our bylaw officer goes out and deals with any issues related with complaints for gatherings and those things, and then we are getting reimbursed. It isn't a great number of dollars, but it is something that the municipalities being able to receive funding on, and then they're increasing it for the remainder of the year. They've also looked at moving into a new program, which we're going to be making application for. Specifically speaking, we are going to make application for 2 of them, which will be the where is it, the green, the general sustainable infrastructure, as well as what they're offering here is an opportunity to look at municipalities where they can show a new way of doing business. And they're putting $5 million in there for new initiatives. An example of a new way of doing business could be sharing of resources, for example. Something like, let's say, a landfill site that can be shared by multiple municipalities, and that would be a beneficial, and it would be a new way of providing that service.
Or
So
wood
that might-
chipper.
Well, that one has already been identified, but we'd be looking at that as part of this program to see if we can get some funding for that as well.
When you say new ways, what about like what you had suggested before when you were going, you went to Grand Marais, you had said to the people in Grand Marais, if you're willing to put up so much, I'm willing to put up so much too. Would that be a new way too?
If you're talking about I think what that was about was specifically related with the
Businesses only?
businesses related to the biz zone.
Okay.
And so we could certainly put an application in for those types of things. You never know if they're, you know, in order
Just
to
some-
encourage
some
business
larger
development.
kind of form to get, you know, like $200,000 or $300,000 if there's that much out there for it somehow, you know.
Yeah, 5 million is a significant amount. I have had the discussions with the assistant to the minister about this already, and I've identified sharing of infrastructure as one of the big ones that I felt that if the province came forward, even just to do some of those studies for us to see where we can. We can certainly also look at it as a way of approaching for other projects as well, such as sharing of the Winnipeg, Grand Beach Lagoon with Grand Marais as an opportunity, or we can take a look at even sharing of transfer stations might be another situation with the provincial government would come in with funding. And one of the more recent ones, and I've talked to you about this, which I'm just sort of working on the details on, which is we made an application with the federal government, but it'd be better in this, which is to provide connectivity for our residents in case of various levels of emergencies. So we have muster station locations as an example. But as a muster station, if you get an ice storm or a major tornado event, or as you may recall from a couple of years ago, we had that power outage. When you get the power outage, you lose your internet connection as well with it, unless you have other capacities. So maybe taking a look at our fire halls being our sort of gathering points already, where people, and they're sort of specifically located. Can we put in generators in there and maybe provide a different type of a level of internet service, such as using Starlinks, so that citizens can come there and gather information and be a good place to get. Those places could also be used as multi-function sites, with some of the things that I've been talking to our staff about, which are, as an example, due to COVID, we've learned a significant amount about the need for people in our rural areas to have that level of connectivity. Sometimes for students to be able to come and do research and gather information, that they may have difficulty being able to travel from a remote location to get somewhere, so maybe they can meet on these places. They're beginning to offer online education, so if you get into a lockdown, this is where students can go in to write tests and those types of things. Or if you're going in for one of the things I was just recently discussing was the opportunity of maybe using these locations where you can set up a room that has an internet connection. And if you're looking at doctor's appointments that are online, here's a place to go where you may not have that level of connectivity in your, you have just a DSL connection or a very slow connection in your cottage or remote location. You can go there as opposed to traveling all the way to Winnipeg or all the way to Selkirk. Those are and if we can get the funding, what I would be requesting for is to do it as a pilot and say that they would cover the costs for our internet connection for 5 or 10 years, so that we can evaluate what kind of use it is for our citizens as a new way of providing services. So those are some of the things I think we can, I think there's an opportunity to even have some further discussions with council on how we can do that even more.
Okay, any questions or comments on the information that our CAO has provided us?
Certainly being proactive if the
That's
municipality can put those types of infrastructure services in, that's huge.
Well, and I think, going to our meeting or this morning when we had the mayors, reeves, and CAOs, there was a presentation by Shared Health and some of the things that, like, our health system is gonna change too. And, some of the changes are slowly being implemented, and they're supposed to send us the information and the slide deck sometime after the day today. But there was some very, very interesting information, and it's kind of what our CAO alluded to, where if you can't always get to your appointment, is there somewhere where you can go and have access to a computer so you can talk to your doctor face to face, have that appointment without having to travel very far. So lots of different things coming up, and I think COVID had a lot to do with some of this stuff because people just aren't moving around as they were before COVID hit, so. Okay, do you have anything else, Deepak, or shall we move on?
Question?
Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Just on 10.44, the education property tax is being phased out. Does anybody know if the government's indicated where they're planning on finding that school funding? If they're going to take it off our taxes, how are they, and where are they going to find that bundle, that basket of money?
So maybe I should explain how this program is to work. It's, they've created a freezing, they have frozen the school's ability to raise the taxes as they have. But our tax bills that are going to go out this year will not change. So the school boards have identified what percentage increase, which was under provincial guidelines that they were putting in place. Based on those, there's a bill created. And so when the bill comes in, what you would normally see is in your tax bill, it would have the $700 property tax credit that the province of Manitoba provided. So that you would have a school bill, let's say for $1,000 as an assessed tax amount for school taxes. It would receive a $700 rebate, and so you'd be paying $300 in total. This year, because of the 25%, it's a new formula, and the way it works is the tax bill will go out, but the amount of the 700 will show as 525 is the new amount as the rebate. And so you had $1,000 as your original owing, so you get that reduced down to 525, so you would be owing 475 total before you were owing 300. But you would get a check delivered to you for the 25% of the gross amount of the 1,000. So you get a check delivered at home with $250. And so logically, somebody should be putting 175 of that 250 away because that's how much the tax bill has gone up.
So
But the rest is found money.
the school tax isn't coming off the tax bill. It's still going to be there, only they've come up with a different formula in which to get it.
Yes, and I've worked through it, and even if you were at the lowest amount, let's say $800, and you were getting $700, you would still be coming out ahead with this 25% rebate.
Okay.
The difficulty in the part that we're explaining to our citizens is that when they see a bottom line number, they will see a larger number than what they saw last year. They may say, well, the taxes went up. Well, yes and no. And that's the part we'll be working to explain. Based on that, the Manitoba Municipal Administrators Association sent a letter to the province saying that they disagree with this model, that they want to do it in their fashion. But I think it's a little late, personally. I don't know if the province will be making that change. They said in the discussions with the province of Manitoba when they met with various government officials. They said that due to the timing associated with delivery of this, that they were delivering checks this year. Next year, when they go to another 25% increase or decrease, they will then look at possibly building into the tax bill. They don't know. That'll be a debate at that time.
So, but not next year, you're not getting 50% off.
Yes, next year you'll get 50% off.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So yeah, we're gonna have some explaining to do. Okay, the scenario that you just explained was for principal residence. So what happens for Rob's cottage at Hecla? Because you don't get $700 off on your cottage. You
No,
only
you
have
don't.
one.
But you still get the 25% of school tax.
So that's a 25.
Still as a check delivered associated with that. Some of the challenges there are, some challenges. I think an example of a challenge would be they are sending one check and it's to the first name on the tax bill. So if there's 2 people or 3 people, only one of those gets the check delivered to their house. Number 2, if you're in arrears, do you still get the check? You do, as far as I understand. We're seeking direction. So let's say somebody's in 3 years in arrears, they're receiving a check and then they're going into tax sale. So those are some challenges that will be as part of this. And then let's say if somebody is, sorry for taking a little longer, then let's say if there's somebody's passed away, it goes to the owner of the property, and then you may have to go through legal action because then the check will be delivered back to the province to receive that funding. Because the municipalities aren't really involved in the distribution of those checks.
As soon as they hear that the checks are out, the mailboxes will be broken into. That's another routine nightmare.
Ask a question. Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland, and then Councillor Borges.
Does anybody know, like, how many other provinces besides us collect school property tax? Manitoba, there's other provinces, they make it up other ways, right? Saskatchewan, I don't think. I'm not
I
sure.
don't know for sure.
Saskatchewan, they're on this kind of thing. They used to be the way we were, but they phased it out too. And I think Alberta too.
Yeah, I'm just
I
curious,
was
there's no other
reading in the
province.
paper the other day.
Yeah, we're one of the few, but I don't know how many
Yeah.
other provinces.
What about farmers? I thought I heard something about farmers get some kind of, so much percentage off too.
Yes, they do. I can't,
But if you say if you only get one check to that house, if you have farmland too, how do you get that other check?
well, whoever's registered on the property as the owner
It's per property.
is per
Oh, it's
property.
per property.
Based on-
Oh, so if I have 5 properties, I'll get 5 checks. Okay.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I think in your case, Councillor Orbis,
That's okay. It's all right.
it's,
You'll be good with that.
That's enough, I'm good.
Yeah.
The way you said it before, it was one check coming, I figured, whoa, this, right.
Okay, are there any other questions on that information that has just been thrown?
Basically, all they're doing is reducing the tax. They're not eliminating it yet. Somehow they're gonna phase it out, but the question was originally, is how are they gonna make that up?
That's what I was
Start
saying.
coming off our income?
And they're gonna get rid of all the school boards.
It'll be income tax.
They're trying,
Well, they're gonna,
yeah.
it's not, they're gonna do it.
Yeah,
well, I can't speak for the province as to how they're going to make it up. You know, they've gone through their analysis. One of the things is they were going to reduce the GST a further amount, or the PST by a further amount that they've delayed. So they've gone through their analysis, and one of their promises was to eliminate school taxes from the property tax bill, which they're moving towards. They said 50% over the next 2 years, and I think it's another 50% over so many other years later.
So really PST, they could get money from there.
they
Like
could,
1 or 2% of the provincial PST is pretty significant,
I would think.
over a few $1 million.
But that money's probably allocated for something else too. GST money, no?
It's still our money.
it's coming down to, you know, a budgeting exercise, similar to what we did. So they will take a look at all their revenues and see where they will do certain savings, and then be able to redistribute that revenue to be able to pay for their expenses.
We'll have to create a new basket.
Or
Start
one.
saving. Okay, anything else on that government funding? Did that already. Okay, 10.3, Red River Planning District, that is a rezoning in the city of Selkirk, and that, if you remember, I looked at it, it's where the trailer park used to be, just off of Annie, I think it is. So,
They're clearing that,
huh?
knocking it right down.
Yeah, they're knocking it right down, but now they're rezoning it to,
This is the land here.
yeah.
Why does it come to us, if I may ask?
Because we're a neighboring municipality, but, I mean, normally we don't comment on any of these, that we get, every once in a while, we get something from Broken Head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just because we're adjoining, yeah, yeah.
It's similar to Winnipeg gets all applications for East St. Paul, West St. Paul,
Yeah,
Rosser,
And then it's gonna go all residential.
yeah.
109 units.
Yeah, different types of residential.
Yes.
Different types of residential,
Yeah,
yes.
their
that's exactly-
Three
application
different kinds.
Yeah.
is right there. R3, R3.
That was kind of a dumpy looking area.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, it seems to be that way with mobile home parks. They are good for quite a number of years, and then they start to deteriorate. I mean, we went through it here when we had Melody Lane before the condos were
Yeah.
built.
That's that's the one there.
Yes, sorry, yes, that's it.
Yeah, so that's for information. I don't believe that we need to do anything with that one. Earth Day campaign,
Just remember to shut everything off.
right?
Go black.
There is, this year they are, as part of the Earth Day, they are requesting for municipalities to make a commitment of 50 trees a month. Planting new 50 trees a month.
And I did read that, and first I thought it was 50 trees a year, and I read it again, and it was like,
Pretty hard.
Well, if we have a place to plant trees, I have some trees that I would like to get rid of, so we can talk about that after.
I might take up for my yard.
They're up for anybody, because I'm not wanting them to get destroyed where they're located, so. AMM municipal, the advisory, member advisory on the provincial budget. I don't know that there's anything that we need to talk about there. I thought the Earth Day one, I thought that was to do partly or in part with the Red River Basin and the fundraising that the Red River Basin Commission is doing, or did I get those two
That's-
confused?
World Water Day.
Oh, this is World Water Day, okay.
Oh,
Okay,
this is Earth Day and the other one's World Water Day.
Yeah, Red River Basin.
Just as additional information for council is that our recreation manager is contacting the schools in the area, and here what she's looking at working with the schools is to possibly do a project for Earth Day, would be maybe something like bird feeders that could be then put out into around our for a period of time at our
time to clean up.
East Selkirk Recreation Complex here.
Okay, so I think we are down to 10.4.3, which is the RCMP quarterly report, and I don't know, we all got a copy of it. I don't know if there's any highlights that you would like to go over, Mr. CAO?
No, Madam Mayor, I think it's pretty straightforward, and there's been discussions in the past, you know, that the numbers, some numbers are, show up higher, and some numbers are lower, and some of that could be attributable to COVID and so forth.
Wasn't any big jumps.
No.
No, no. which is a good thing. Okay, so now we can move on to council reports. And I'm going to start today with Councilor Horace.
April the 6th was a special meeting for council, mainly to do with budgeting. And then April the 12th, we had another budget meeting, which was very productive, I thought. And today, our regular meeting. That's all I have.
That's all you have, okay, thank you for that. Councilor Bazarowicz.
April 6th budget, we had Greg in here with the building. We had a special meeting, we dealt with personnel and lot sales. April 7th, I had a wildlife webinar. April 9th, we were here with Gordon McIntosh. And April 12th, grant policy review.
That webinar that you had on the 7th,
Partial.
I thought, did you say wildlife? It's wildfire.
Wildfire, yes.
Oh, okay.
I just assumed he was on some wildlife meeting.
Wildfire.
No, I was actually going to join that one too, and I just never got the opportunity to, something
It's
came up and I couldn't.
posted.
Oh, okay.
You can still catch up on it. One thing that was interesting about that was, like if the fire does something to your property and that, you leave on your home, you get nothing for it. If you stick there until they declare a state of emergency, you get covered 100%.
Really?
Or if it's nipping at your heels and nobody called it, you're messing up.
So if nobody comes and calls it, you can be burnt, you can burn it.
Well, you have your
Or
horse.
then you have your own
Your
insurance.
insurance, yeah.
You wouldn't be covered by disaster management or fund. Which really isn't fair.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Spicer.
I also attended April 6th. We had a budget meeting with Public Works and a special meeting for the borrowing bylaws essentially. And also on April 6th, there was, I attended the Mansi webinar on electric and biomass and farming. And did miss the other two, but I do have the links to attend those now, but this one was pretty interesting. The future in farming is going to look a lot different. They have actual equipment they're using now. If you think about the big four-wheel drive tractors, okay, you take the front end off of it, you don't need a cab anymore. It's all going to be done by GPS and mapping. And
No body in it.
A lot of it is done now.
yeah,
GPS.
and they're switching them to electric.
Are you saying nobody's in it? It's just operating its own, or someone else still in it?
Well, it's all computer through GPS and the way you program it. Right?
Even 20 years ago, like overhead cranes and that, with the railroad, there was nobody there. Where these huge tow trucks now, or towing semis and that, nobody in the truck. They're on the ground with the joysticks.
So a lot of this is about, farming has changed quite a bit. You've got to be a techie. That's where they're headed, right? So a lot of interesting information, like right now in Canada, there's 80 million acres of crop land. Since 1970s, half of the farmers are gone. There is also a big switch to ensuring the soil is much better than, when you're doing your practices like zero till instead of, 100% 100% cultivating your soils, retaining as much of the nutrients as you can. The other thing about tractors going electric, they're much better performance, and they're much lighter, so you don't have compaction of the soil underneath them. The big challenge, I guess, that they're moving into is how do you feed that electricity, right? And there's a number of ways, but they're looking at probably biomass is going to be the best way. They're doing some work on that. Got lots more notes, but that should pique your interest.
Can I ask you a
Hang on,
question?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
no, I was just gonna ask Scott to just hang on a sec. There's a couple of questions. So go ahead, Councillor Borges, and then Councillor Vazzarova.
When you said there's 80 million acres of land now,
Yeah.
and then compared to before, did they give a difference?
They didn't do a comparison to
I
before.
was just wondering how much more or less there is now.
I would think,
That's,
I didn't think so, I would think there'd be more.
I think there would be more,
Yeah.
because there's
broken
more
up,
tree
trees,
areas
yeah.
getting.
more developed, for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Vazzarova.
Yeah, you said the units would be lighter. It seemed to be lighter because the cattle, electric, are gonna run on battery, and batteries are literally, it's all lead. And as far as charging goes, I can see solar panels on top of every machine instead of a cap.
Councillor Boulanger.
I really don't know how you're gonna arrive with the horsepower needed from batteries to farm.
Oh, it's
way
higher.
more,
Actually,
it's way
no
more.
more.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
you should see it in the semi
Electric is
trucks.
crazy.
Unbelievable.
They're much more effective getting the
Even in
power
their
to
car, when
the.
they
They-
And instant.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no-
right.
no
They-
revving
they-
up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
instant,
we
just
went.
Bang, it
Yeah.
was there.
It's like when you turn a light bulb, that's how
I
it is.
know.
The power's right to it.
Well, I wouldn't have thought that either, but we went in
Electric
that
cars used to
car,
race.
when we went to that thing way out in the middle of nowhere there.
The
What was
village
that?
of Denali.
Denali.
It was a water,
Yeah.
water day.
Yeah,
Holy mackerel, that car, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
The acceleration from just bang.
0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
I worked at Flyer Industries back in the 70s, and we had the electric buses there, and you put them on a dyno, it was just instant. Whereas the diesels, you had to wind them up, wind them up.
Go ahead, Councillor Soto.
Trains,
Trains have always
they all
run.
run on electricity.
Yeah, that's.
It's only the diesel motor that creates
Yeah.
the, and there's a lot of power there.
Yeah.
That diesel.
Yeah,
motor.
true.
Okay, go ahead,
That's all.
Councillor Spicer, we'll let
So-
you continue.
April 7th, I attended the Lord Selkirk School Division webinar on education reform. Now, it was to provide information. So in Lord Selkirk School Division, the existing one, there's 9 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 1 K-9, 1 Hunter Colony School, and 1 high school. Apparently, the government did a K-12 education review that cost $1 million. There was 2,309 written submissions, 8,891 public survey responses, and there were 75 recommendations made. So Bill 64 is the bill. It's likely going to be passed in November 2021. It's a new governance model. There's links on their website if you want to provide or get more information. So 37 school divisions will now be 15 regions. That's supposed to happen by July the 1st, 2022. So there were 4 associations that kind of worked in the school system the way it is now. And it's going to change to 1, which is the Manitoba Schools Benefits Administration Corporation. One of the challenges, I guess, that we're going to have, unless I read this incorrectly, is we're going to have the south end in the Winnipeg region, because all the Winnipeg school divisions are going to be 1. And then we're gonna have the North End and Interlake and Lord Selkirk. So each school will have their own community council. One member will be elected to the Provincial Advisory Council. There will be no more superintendents, there'll be directors. So in Lord Selkirk School Division, you're gonna have 16 people that will basically change to one director. The province appoints the Provincial Education Authority members, so that's at the top, and they will run all the facets of education. So the school community council will advise and make recommendations to the principal of the school. Now, they don't really have any decision-making. They just advise and make recommendations on hiring and development of staff. So there's going to be 174 of these school community councils that are going to take over the role of the 37 school boards, but school boards were accountable. The school community councils really aren't. Just have that advisory. Oops, wrong way, sorry. So there's a little bit of challenge in that, right? Because you can only recommend. So what happens if there's, evaluation of staff? Let's talk about that. So now, where is there a privacy issue in that at all? They can make recommendations on expelling students. Is there privacy issues in there? Is there conflict of interest in there? So that's part of the challenge. So right now, there's 162 people registered to speak at Bill 64 in the legislature. There's a website called Better Education Manitoba, if you want to take a look at it. And community of Nova Scotia, or province of Nova Scotia has done similar transformation. Now, the only thing that came out to me was when all of this discussion was happening was, let's take a look at the system now. Okay, so the system now is it's on property tax, and if I had a problem with the school, I could raise my concern. Or if, let's say, you're a grandparent of a child, like I don't have any children, so I could still raise concerns. If you're a grandparent, you had a say. So the question really becomes now, because the legislation talks about parent, 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 parent. So now what about caregiver? What about, like, what's the definition of? And then the other side of it would be, and then there was some mixed questions and answers on this one, because one of the questions was, existing board members, do any of you have children in the schools? The answer, unfortunately, was no. But, I mean, a couple of them were ex-school teachers, and a lot of them had children in the school.
Yeah, they're all older people who are almost retired. Yeah.
So, but there's a question now, if you're not a parent with a child in the school, have you lost your say? And then it comes back to the question you asked before. So if this rotates into some other type of taxation at some point in time, which is probably going to have to, whichever way the province decides, does that mean that if you're not a parent, you've lost your say? Because you're still paying, right? In some way, shape, or So I just found that all kind of really interesting. On April the 8th, we
Before
had,
you go further, Councillor Boulanger has a question or a comment.
Just a couple of questions. Are these new advisory community council boards that they're establishing unpaid or paid?
it's all supposed to be volunteer.
So when I see all these kinds of changes, it makes me wonder, as a Manitoban, is it this government's idea to do this to make it more streamlined and easy? Or is it this government's idea to do it because it's going to save them a whole pile of money?
Volunteered.
Well, and
Oh,
that's
There
a
always
good
were.
question.
I've been on, there always were advisory parents,
Okay, you had to pay
always
the
in
school
schools
board.
before.
You had
There was
to.
It was a good question,
That
because
case-
that question got asked, and the answer was,
Yeah.
We volunteered.
or the question was,
Parents. Yeah.
what happens if you don't get volunteers then?
Yeah.
And
Well,
they didn't really know the answer.
And I think the other question that arose when they talked about volunteers, and you kind of alluded to it, where, you know, they're talking parents, parents, parents. Well, maybe as a parent, my kids are done school, but as a grandparent, I might like to volunteer if I'm still able to, but it didn't appear that that was gonna be happening. Like, it was, everything was parent, parent, parent. And I know what you're saying about, you know, parent advisory boards in schools or committees. They're gonna be non-existent.
Like the PTA?
Yeah, not gonna have them anymore. So,
Harper Valley PTA.
I just can't help but think it's a way of just pitching the nickel, which is fine.
yeah, I went on the website here, and there is actually quite a bit of good information, and there was a lot of good information on that webinar too. I sat in on that one
How's
too.
that gonna function with a bunch of volunteers?
Well, it's
I can't make it
It's
easy.
pretty simple. It's going to be, the government's going to hire or appoint the top level, and they're gonna run the show.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, the volunteers will have their say, but it's only advise or recommend, so they don't have to listen really to,
So.
it's not a legislative
Will the
requirement.
when you said before they'll advise to the principal,
There isn't gonna be principals anymore, right?
No, there's still gonna be principals, no superintendent.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So the principal's basically gonna run the school.
Okay, I think we'll let you keep
Okay.
going.
April the 8th, Gaynor Library, well, I mean, these are pretty interesting things.
It
A
was,
lot of big changes, right?
yeah.
April 8th was Gaynor Library, and we had our regular meeting. We're still likely gonna have, we did get some Healthy Child funding from the province, which we were concerned that we weren't going to get, but we're still gonna have some challenges with finances.
But this-
So I guess I got, you guys were talking railroad before. I guess I got put on to a committee to look at fundraising. So, we're gonna see what we can come up with. Feedback has graciously, said he'd give me a little hand with that.
You got voluntold?
Yeah, that's kind of what basically, the library's running the same. We're still doing the pickup drop off, and we have 3 computers that you can use if you register for them. April the 9th, I attended the AMM webinar on respectful leadership. So, few things from that. There is a decline, a trend. The trend is a decline in civility. I like this comment. Stress can cause schoolyard behavior. So we go back to school there. I like that. So we went through what civility is, what incivility is. A lot of it was
USA.
thinking about how you yourself operate and what prompts you to, you know, get excited, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. So, there's lots of impacts, you know, on yourself, your stress, your mood, your health. You're not functioning effectively, demotivates on your colleagues, you know, stop working as a team, stop listening. And also there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of examples of, let's call it incivility with folks going on social media or whatever. And I mean, we see it here locally in some of our municipalities, you know, they get on TV and they say, well, the staff should have done this, or, you know, I think my council should have done that, or whatever. So those are the things that cause some of this. And then, of course, if you went on and criticize your staff, well, then they lose their drive to continue working hard for you. So it was actually pretty good. I think, you know, I learned a few things about myself. So,
I'm sure Deepak will comment on that webinar too, because he and I were both here watching it.
and then April 12th in the morning, we continued on with budget meeting, and that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know if there's any more questions. We rifled a few and had a little bit of discussion, so if there's nothing else, I'll move on to Councillor Boulanger.
Just three things, March 30th, our planning meeting, and then the 6th and 12th, our budget. That's it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Strang.
Same as everyone, April 6th, budget and special meeting. April 9th, the Gord McIntosh, respectful leadership. And actually some things I thought it would be really good to do the personality test around the room here, because it actually is very interesting. And Deepak was our speaker of our group. They kept on saying, haven't heard from you, Sandra. I was going to say, well, I'm at SOA. But no, it was really interesting. One of the comments that the gentleman made was, he said that we should, every 3 months, we should stop and we should look and see how are we doing at our meetings. Just different things of how we're coming across to people, how we're coming across to each other, if there's problems, or there's some little tweak, you know how rumors start and then things build? He says to stop and take care of it right then. Face the problem right there. Don't let it linger because it festers and grows. Lost there. Oh, one of the other interesting things is remember that we're elected as a whole RM, not just the area where we live. And I thought, hey, that's us all. So that was one of the things that he brought out. So, but yeah, I found that BMI of the personalities very, very interesting in that. And then, you know what, after you sit and look at all the little qualities there, you're like, yeah, like, you know, Scott's a C, and like, you know, and I'm looking at myself, I'm like, well, I guess I am an S, like, you know, on some of the things that, but you can pick out certain qualities of everybody. And I think we have a really good group with our qualities, so, but you may never get that again too, so.
Oh, look what Deepak just put up on the board.
Yeah, those things and that, so you actually sit there.
Stable and steady, yes. C, controlled and disciplined.
You can maybe let that guy know that people in Ward 1 don't vote for people in Ward 2, so he can know that.
That's not though, that's when we're in here that we have to make the decisions, yeah. for the whole-
When you're elected, you
Yeah.
say, when they vote.
Can you be a blend?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
If you, only a very small percentage of people are a blend of 2 is 10% of the people, then it goes even lower for 3, the blend. So
In truth, you're a little bit of all of them.
Yeah, true.
Sure.
It's just which ones are.
More dominant.
More dominant, yeah.
I'll print it off for you.
Depends on the alcohol level.
Try it out.
Yeah, that's like that, that's.
Well, we're going to do that as an exercise here one day, so.
Yes, we'll do it on the next budget meeting, right?
Yeah. Oh, talking about budget, what did I put right here? Make sure your service level priorities. We should sit and discuss it, of what we want to before we do budget. That was one of the things, you said
Yes.
your service level, sorry. There's one other thing. Oh, and how many RMs still don't have a strategic plan going forward, that they don't know where they're going? So he said that,
Taking my stuff away.
sorry.
I found that interesting, sorry.
But just how many RMs don't have that? I thought, wow, that was one of the first
Yeah.
things we did when we came in here as a new group, so. Anyways, and then our budget meeting yesterday.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, Dave, what have you got to report? See,
Sorry.
Sandra stole it all.
I had it written down here, I'm still gonna, anyway. March 30th to the council meeting and budget, okay? April 9th, the respectful leadership of Gordon McIntosh. Yeah, like, I found it very interesting, and I did find myself relating, not just to me, to the counselors, you know, that you can't pick out just how people react, we're all different. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And yeah, Sandra, I thought everybody had a strategic plan. Found that out that not every council has them. Very interesting. And also, it was brought up, like, you know, your ward systems. But as a councillor, as we all know, we're responsible to the municipality as a whole. But in that discussion, I was on Team 3, I did have to admit, even though you know that you're a councillor for the whole municipality, but I, from time to time, I find myself concentrating on Ward 2. But if somebody has happened, you know, if somebody has called me for Ward 1, and I don't say, well, call your councillor. But I was guilty of, from time to time, I still look at it as a councillor for the whole municipality, but I had to be honest in the round table discussion. And they had the pros and cons of the committee of the whole meeting, you know, which we, I know when I first got on council, we didn't, it was people were on different committees, and then they would report to council. And I sure liked it when we changed the committee of the whole meetings, like we're all there, we're discussing it, you know, instead of you being on something, you come and report to, it's just, that's what I find anyway, you know. But it was brought up, there's pros and cons to it, but, and in the respective leadership, some issues come up with some councillors, not our council. Just overall, you know, councils bringing up multiple issues at meetings, you know, and they just kind of throw the wrench at everything, not all over the place, which is, you know, happens. April 6th, our budget meeting, the public, Greg attended that one. And April 12th, yesterday, our budget meeting. And I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I have a few here. March 30th, we were all at our budget meeting and then our regular council meeting. April 1st, I had a John Q. board meeting, and the meeting was called to have updates on various projects. Funding has not yet been secured, and that is a concern for the fiber project, as other ISPs have received funding from Canadian Infrastructure Bank. One thing is that the ISP one of the ISPs is doing a lot of work south of Winnipeg and is not really interested in working north of the perimeter, so that might help us to get our internet service faster if we choose to keep going in that direction. I guess there was a lot of discussion on next steps and different funding sources. And we kind of left it that, you know, we would try and secure additional funding for the project with RF Now and see where that goes. There is still another project being worked on, but at this point in time, it is still under confidentiality rules, and I can't share very much with you, but we're hoping very soon that we can make that public because it's getting closer to the end of the project. April 6th, again, budget and special meeting. April 7th, the town hall with the school division. I thought it was pretty interesting. The one thing that I jotted down here, Scott had a lot more of the details than I have, but the new area for the Lord Selkirk School Division will now consist of 38 schools and over 6,800 students because they're being amalgamated with the Interlake School Division. So that's a big difference in number of students, number of schools. There's going to be a new governance model and a complete overhaul of the system, and the Provincial Education Authority will set the rules. And I've jotted down here the education, Better Education for All website.
Bless you.
Thank you. So, I mean, there's a lot, like I just pulled it up here while Scott was speaking, and there's a 34-page document on the website that if anybody's interested, we can have a read there. I think it's going to be really different, and I'm not so sure that how it's going to work. Like, all the schools in Winnipeg are all going to be in one school division now. Like, there's not going to be all the different school divisions.
Well,
Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
like, I missed those numbers that you brought up, but you sit and think about 6,800 in this division or in this region, and how many kids are there going to be in Winnipeg? Like, it's not a population-based whatsoever.
No,
right?
no. I don't know how they've come to some of the conclusions they've come to, but it's moving forward, so we'll have to work with them. Then on April the 8th, I had a Winnipeg Metro Region special board meeting, and the meeting was called to review the, I guess the executive committee of the WMR has been working on the board structure for the capital planning region. So we had a number of meetings, and we thought that it was time to bring it forward to the whole group, so that is what we did. Some did not like the model that was brought forward. There was quite a bit of discussion, and the model that was presented will be scaled back and presented to the Bill 37 working group, and I believe that's going to be happening this week, so I'm not sure where that's going to go. And of course, too, on April the 9th, the education webinar, I thought it was very interesting. I really like Mr. McIntosh. He's got some good ideas, and he always keeps you very interested. And a couple of the things, information needs to be shared by members of council, civility, and this is the one that I think Sandra brought this one up, to make sure that council has its priorities set and establish the service levels before the budget process is even started. We have to kind of know where we're going, so. And I kind of like this comment, there are bad people, but if a good person goes rogue, we need to find out why. So that was one of his comments. And I like the part that Councillor Sutherland mentioned about the committee of the whole meetings, and he believes in committee of the whole because he says council meetings are for hearing delegations, making decisions, and discussing in-camera items. Committee of the whole is for sharing information and more casual conversation and discussion on different things. So, and I think we're doing it the right way. I mean, I like our committee of the whole and then our regular council meetings. our budget meeting yesterday, and that's all I have. Mr. CAO, have you a verbal report for us this time around?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. So, March 30th, April 6th, and April 12th, budget meetings with council, March 30th and April 6th, and April 13th, council meetings with council. I also had several meetings with Bill 37 Working Group, which were April 1st, and then another one is coming forward as well on the 15th, and then I had a couple of them in between. I also had meetings with our Mayor Murray regarding our Guns Creek diversion. On the Guns Creek diversion, we've been dealing with the issues related to some additional costs and how to deal with, how to adjust for those additional costs. I think I've given council an update on it already, where I've talked about that we've had to resort to dealing with open cuts as opposed to directional drilling in some areas, but we're trying to stay within our budget of $2.7 million. And along with that, we had some land acquisition issues related with the land property just north of our fire hall by Donald Street and Emerson Highway, and I can report later as to some of the discussions with the property, which are to be considered in camera. And I also had meetings with the property owners, R&B Properties, several times on it. There was also the April 9th Gordon McIntosh presentation that I was also a part of. And the one thing that I wanted to note on there, or two things. One was there's two videos that were provided for us to do as part of our homework. And I can tell you that once I finished those videos, and from my past experience, I definitely felt like I had PTSD afterwards. Because it reminded me of what can happen when you have an unhealthy work environment, when you're dealing with an aggressive council, or when there's a lot of infighting. I can tell you that everything that is being done in this council is all the things that Gordon McIntosh talked about are the right way of running. Respect between the administration, knowing where the lines are drawn, respect within the council, strategic planning, direction setting, looking at policy. Those are all the things that this council has been doing, and I think it's important, and I'm glad it's being recorded to be able to say that that's what's exactly happening. Beyond that, I had meetings also with the Red River Planning regarding our planning applications, as well as meeting with lost track of, here we go. Related with Guns Creek, and meeting regarding some development related with our economic development. But I can fill you in afterwards.
That's it for you for today?
Yes, the more I talk, the more I'll end up in PTSD again.
Heather, would you have anything that you would like to share with us today?
I don't have anything to add today.
Okay, so that is it for our council and administration reports. So we can move in camera now if there's nothing else that you want to discuss at the moment. And there's a few items that we want to discuss in camera. So if I could have the resolution, please.
Resolved, council recess the regular meeting and go into in-camera to discuss legal and personnel issues, and further be it resolved that all matters discussed are to remain confidential as per section 83(1)(d) of the Municipal Act.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland. Any comments, questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.